Since Connor does not want to go after these precursor sites and start messing with the world, I do believe that Shay doesn't care much as to what Connor's getting up to. Okay, maybe getting about killing his Templar friends is a bit on the what their ex-man stop side, and he probably might hunt him for that. But I do not believe that Shay truly cares too much about Connor's actions, as they are not harming people, supposedly. But there are reasons for both to face down with one another. So, for example, Shay is a Templar, Connor is an assassin. Shay killed loads of assassins, Connor killed loads of Templars. Some of these Templars were probably friends of Shay's. So there's plenty of grounds for a confrontation to take place and not seem too out of place. But there is one thing that I haven't mentioned yet which holds Connor back from Shay entirely. He doesn't know he exists, to our knowledge. In the events of Assassin's Creed 3, we do not hear or even see any reference to Shay in any way whatsoever. Not by name, and definitely not in a way in which Connor would know who Shay was. In Assassin's Creed 3 as well, every character who knew Shay died. And before they do die, none of them mention to Connor anything about Shay. Of course, as far as we're aware. But to our knowledge, Connor does not directly know about Shay, and he has no reason to. So, Connor hunting Shay is essentially out the window at this point. But the question also encompasses vice versa. And as we know, in the ending of Assassin's Creed Rogue, Connor is mentioned by name. So we know that Shay knows about Connor and his activities in the colonies. So it is entirely possible that Shay could hunt Connor, but like I said in my first point, I do not believe that Shay has any reason to, besides from payback for killing all of his Templar friends, or at least some of them. And you could argue that Shay might possibly die at some point after we see him in 1776, but I do believe that because he supposedly trained Cudgel Cormac, he lived at least until the turn of the 19th century. So Shay's knocking about, probably returns to New York at some point, and Connor's knocking about in the same area, so a confrontation is entirely possible, but to my knowledge, it didn't occur, and didn't have substantial reason to. But of course, anything is possible, and new events could cause these two to clash. Maybe we'll see it in a comic somewhere or something like that in the future. That would be pretty cool, actually. But if any assassin were to finally get Shay, I'd say it would probably have to be Arno. Although I do believe that no assassin should get Shay, and Shay should just live a nice, peaceful life and die of old age or whatever. But thank Spoiler warning, if you haven't played both Assassin's Creed Rogue and Assassin's Creed Unity and do not want those games spoiled, stop watching, play those games at your own leisure and come back when you're done. The video's not going anywhere, so I don't mind. In Assassin's Creed Unity, one of the weakest points about Arno as a character is arguably the lack of follow-up on his somewhat cliché action protagonist backstory. That cliche being that Arno's father was killed when he was but a young boy, and as he moves after the event, he somewhat blames himself for what happened. Something we've seen about 100,000 million, billion, trillion times before in the past. I know, nothing special. special. Moving on. It's bad enough that it's got a cliche backstory that we've seen 100 million times in the past, but it's even worse that they later pay no mind to it, and there's no follow-up. For example, Arno hunting his father's killer, or at least looking for answers. However, as far as we're aware, in Assassin's Creed canon as a whole, this does not happen, especially not in the game of Assassin's Creed Unity. What's funny is you play through the first sequence or so of Assassin's Creed, with Arno's father's death on your mind as the player, and then all of a sudden Arno's current guardian, Francois de Lesser, gets murdered, and all of a sudden the entire game is about that. Then Arno spends the rest of the game trying to unravel the Templar conspiracy that has Francois de Lesser killed. And although Charles Dorian does get the odd mention here and there throughout the game, there is no real reference to any information regarding what happened for Arno to discover, and he doesn't seem remotely interested. So Arno joins the Assassin Brotherhood at some point during the second sequence, I do believe. I could be wrong, I haven't played the game story in a while, but he joins the Brotherhood looking for redemption because he blames himself for not being able to prevent the murder of Francois de Lesser. Presumably, that blame extends to blaming himself for the death of his own father. Understandable. But although he might blame himself, he doesn't seem to give a donkey's spiced fart about what really happened on that fateful day on the 27th of December in the year 1776 in Versailles. So it's assumed that Arno really doesn't have a clue who killed his father. But we know that Arno's father's killer was none other than the Assassin's Creed Rogue protagonist, the assassin turned Templar, Shay Cormac. And of course, by the time Arno is capable enough to investigate this, it's already a cold case. All he has is his memories, and they be quite fragmented by this time, as far as his own consciousness is concerned, and he wouldn't really have any leads. So in fairness, he'd be stumped for starters, even if he did try to investigate. And it's entirely possible that he did investigate in parts of the universe that are yet to be introduced into canon, in stories that presumably haven't been written yet. But let's face it, even if Arno had a lead to go off, he wouldn't know what exactly he was looking for. So Shay is completely in the wind at this point, say, around the events of Assassin's Creed Unity. If Arno looked into this, that would have changed that. But we don't even seem to see Arno get even remotely upset about the fact that he can't actually bring his father's killer to justice. But as we see in that drug trip thing from a mug that Arno took as a part of his trial to join the Brotherhood, Arno clearly blamed himself for his father's death, because, as in that vision, he killed his father's killer within the vision, who bore the face of none other than Arno himself. Arno then spent the best part of the rest of the game unraveling the conspiracy that circled around the death of Francois de Lesser, and never really paid much mind to his own father's death after that. So perhaps that trial cleansed Arno of his guilt, who knows? But Arno's father's killer, Charles Dorian's killer, is still out there. Does Arno care though? Maybe. Let's find out. The only theory I can really provide that might help make sense of it, and it's a pretty dumb theory considering that this is a make-believe fictional product, is that Arno believed the conspirators who killed Francois de Lesser were also behind the murder of his father. However, if this was the case, he would have mentioned it, which he did not. So it's still a very flawed conclusion. However, I do believe it's less flawed than Arno didn't go after Shay because he just didn't. Because that's just outright terrible storytelling. And it's a shame that we don't really get any advancements on this, trying to find out who killed Charles Dorian thing from Arno's perspective. I feel as if it's both a missed opportunity and it just makes Charles Dorian's death completely pointless. Having this intended crucial event that opens a story and not having closure for that crucial event is almost as pointless as a car exhaust grill. And I mean, had a couple or three sequences of Assassin's Creed Unity been about Arno investigating who killed his father, finding out it was Shay, hunting down Shay, finding out he's nearby at this point for some reason, and then having them have this showdown would have been much cooler than just forgetting about it. And it would have been closure for both the beginning of Arno's story and Shay's life. That is assuming that Shay gets killed by Arno, which I consider highly unlikely considering that Shay's pretty well skilled. And I mean, logically, it'd probably be unlikely that it would ever get to that, but there's no evidence of Arno trying to unravel the mysteries around who killed his father. And if I'm honest, that's just a little bit irritating because it's a big opening, crucial point of the story, and they don't follow up on it. But like I said before, I'm sure Arno did actually try to find out what happened in Versailles on that day, but we haven't seen it in any canon material yet. But